My name is Marla Ramírez. I'm an assistant professor of history and Chicana, Chicano, Latina, Latino studies at UW-Madison. I teach and research about the U.S.-Mexico borderlands history, specifically looking at the history of Mexican repatriation in the years leading up to and shortly following the Great Depression. My interest in immigration is really grounded in the efforts that I had to go through to understand my own immigration case as an undocumented immigrant, applying for a family petition, and then having different kinds of petitions over time, and a process that took over 20 years to finally be able to become a legal permanent resident. And in being almost forced to understand immigration law in order to navigate my own immigration case, I became fascinated with this world of immigration and how the law works and how it affects everyday people, how it affected me, how it affected my family, how it affected my friends and community members. Many of the people that I grew up and went to school with when I was in middle school and high school were undocumented immigrants themselves. And I saw very real everyday effects that sometimes had drastic consequences on them and their communities. What I would like you to take away from my research is that the history of U.S.-Mexico migrations is rooted in xenophobia that was targeted to other ethnic and racial groups before it became targeted to Mexicans, and has continued to be targeted against other ethnic and racial groups since the 1930s, including Mexicans. And the historiography has documented that very well, and we know that somewhat in the general public, but also in academia, right? What we know less about is how these xenophobic actions and policies also affect U.S. citizens. And that's what my research is unearthing, right? How the wives and children of Mexican immigrants who were U.S. citizens themselves got entangled in these mass removals during the 1930s, and what it means to classify people who are non-white as immigrants just because they're not white or not white passing, right? And that it affected Mexicans in the 1930s doesn't mean it cannot affect other communities of color, and what it means to have an imagined social understanding of citizenship in the United States as only white, and the repercussions it has on people of color over time since the 1930s that has affected 3 generations since then, and can continue to have detrimental effects. And so it is time to think more critically about how our assumptions and misconceptions and xenophobic policies have very real repercussions in everyday life in specific communities, but they can be replicated against multiple other communities and have.